we've mentioned many times, in the name of the great Reb Chatzkel, Zechet Tzadik L'Bracha, that Emunah and Bitachon is like a muscle. And just like when you walk into a gym and you see these guys doing reps, hundreds and hundreds of reps again and again and again, until finally it makes an impression on the muscle that they're working out. And the reason for those reps is not just to build up the muscle, but that one day, when they're going to need to rely on that muscle, it'll have worked out so well that at the moment that he needs to rely on the strength of that muscle, he can count on it. That's the point. Emunah and Bitachon. It's not about the chidush, it's about the chazara. Let me share with you an amazing Gemara. The Gemara Masechet Ketubot tells us about a fantastic individual, the great Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi teaches us, if you watch a little bit about the way he lived his life, miracles don't happen to logical people. You got to be a little crazy to be zochet to miracles. You see, because when you're purely and solely work on logic, where Borei Olam asks you, rely on me, be somech alai. Did I ever let you down? I know you're in a tough spot. I know you think there's no way out. I know that you see that there's no explainable solution to the problem that you think you find yourself in. But nonetheless, I'm telling you, smoch alai, be boteach in me. And I'll open doors for you that you didn't think is possible. I'll literally turn the world upside down for you because I love you. A guy that works on pure logic has such a hard time with this. The first reaction is, but what do you mean? But what do you mean? But it doesn't make sense. But how's that possible? But there's no way this is going to work. And how is this going to happen? And suddenly this guy, Mr. Logic, is trying to fit God in the box of his logic. Hashem is too big for that. He's too big. Do you know my Father? He's way too big. You're trying to fit him into your little box of logic, of the way you think the world runs, the way you think things can or cannot happen. Don't try to be mistader, Borei Olam, with your logic. Don't try to stunt Borei Olam's greatness. And therefore, logical people generally are not zocheh to miracles. You got to be a little bit above the box of logic to be able to say it doesn't make sense, it's not logical, and I still believe in him. And I still believe he can pull me through. And I still believe that he has a way to do this, that although it doesn't make sense, but somehow or other, I'm going to cling to him. And I'm going to say, Abba, nachon ata ohev oti? Abba, nachon ata ohev oti? Nachon ata bal rachman achi gadol ba'olam? Abba. Nachon Abba ata hagomel chesed achi gadol ba'olam? Listen to what you have going for you guys. You have a Father who loves you, who's the greatest Rahman in the world. He's the greatest Bal Chesed in the world. And all he wants to do is help you. You're going to hold him to your logic? Why would you do that? You have everything going for you. He loves you. He was always there for you. He always provided for you. He always bailed you out in every other problem in life. Why would you hold him to such a small box of your logic? But Rabbi, it doesn't make sense. There's no way out of this one. There's no way for this to work. I don't understand how this could ever end. I hear people say so many times, how could this ever end? I'm in such a black hole, such in a situation that it doesn't make sense for it to And stop trying to make sense of things. Stop trying to make sense of things. Nothing makes sense. Be a little crazy. Be above logic and say it doesn't make sense. But you know what? I'm still holding on. I believe, Abba, that you love me. I believe that you're always there for me. I believe that you always bailed me out. I've seen it many times. I believe that you're the great Baal Rahman. There's no Rahmanut greater than you in the world. There's no bigger Baal Chesed than you in the world. And with all those attributes, you're my Abba. And therefore, it doesn't matter if I deserve it or not. It doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. You'll do it for me anyways, the way a parent does for their kids, even when it doesn't make sense. How many times parents come down to school and you tell the parent everything the kid did wrong, and they don't care. And they'll say, Rabbi, I hear what you're saying, but please let him back in. But did you just hear what I just told you? Did you get the last 20 minutes of what I just said? Did you hear about 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? Did I mention X, Y, and Z? And yet, Rabbi, I understand. I get it. Let him back in. Hello? Basically, what the parent is saying is, I understand your logic. And logically, what you're saying is correct. My kid messed up big time. And I'm still asking you to go above the logic and please have mercy and let it go. The minute we start dealing with mercy and the minute we start dealing with chesed is the minute that we walk away from logic and we walk into the arms of Borei Olam. And his mercy is greater than any mercy in the world. And his chesed is beyond any human understanding of what kindness can mean. So let me tell you about Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who lived above logic. You see, the Gemara tells us in the last daf in Afal Pi, in the 5th perek of Masechet Ketubot, that there was a sickness, a plague, that was going around at that time, where people were infected by this, it was like a spider, or maybe it was a tick. It was this really ugly, disgusting thing that attached itself to the head of people. And it would kind of sink its tentacles, its feet, into the scalp of a person. And once it got in, you couldn't get it out. And it would literally and it would kill people. And it was incredibly contagious. So, God forbid, lo aleinu alechem, someone who had this, you couldn't go near them. And these people that were found with this thing in their head, this sickness, they would send them literally, michutz lamahaneh, they get them out really fast. So all these people were basically stuck outside of the city. And the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi picks himself up and he goes outside of the city. And he goes to these people, the infected people with this sickness. And he sits down amongst them. And he starts to teach them Torah. And they said, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, what are you doing? What are you doing? Do you know how contagious this is? I mean, you're putting your life on the line. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi lived above logic. Does it make sense what I'm doing, he says? No. But he believed in something bigger than the logic of how contagious the sickness was. He believed that the Torah was magne umatzle, that the Torah protected the people who learned it and the people who taught it. And because of that, he felt that whether it was contagious or not, and again, don't try this at home, this was the great Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. He was Gadol Ador. We're not talking about stam any guy. I don't want you guys thinking like, okay, I'm allowed to walk on a tightrope between apartment buildings on the way to shul because I'm going to learn. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that he was on that level, that he was so above the logic that he lived with an incredible hashgacha that was miraculous. That's how big he was. And then his day had come, where the Malach HaMavet came to Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi to take him from this world. Famous Gemara. And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said to the Malach HaMavet, wait one second. Before I let you take me, I want to see where is it that you're taking me to. Now, guys, we got to pause the Gemara just for a moment. What? What did he just say? He just told the Malach HaMavet, you're not taking me until I see where you're taking me to. How in the world? How is he able to do that? How is he able to control and be sholet on the Malach HaMavet to tell him, I'm not letting you take me? And it sounds from the Gemara that you're about to hear now that the Malach HaMavet had no choice but to listen to him. As you're going to hear, the Malach HaMavet literally had to take Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi up to heaven first and show him his Gan Eden. Or else he wasn't going to allow him to take him. How's that possible? How is he sholet on the Malach HaMavet? And the answer is, if you're sholet on the Malach HaMavet, the Samach Mem, if you're sholet on the Yetzer Hara your whole lifetime, if you control him your entire life, you can control him at the time of death as well. And that was Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. I don't think you can give a better intro to the greatness of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi than that. And here he turns to Malach HaMavet and says, I'm not going anywhere until you show me my spot. So the Malach HaMavet takes him up to heaven. And the Malach HaMavet shows him, beyond this wall is Gan Eden, Olam Haba. Beyond this wall is your chelek in Olam Haba. So Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, wait one second. I didn't see it yet. Hoist me up. Pick me up. Let me peek over the wall and let me be able to see the chelek that's going to be for me in the next world in Gan Eden. The Malach HaMavet probably thought to himself, Ufta. But, like we said, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi was sholet on him. So Malach HaMavet says, okay, I'll hoist you up. Shmuel says, oh, wait one second. I don't trust you. You are the Malach HaMavet. You're going to hoist me up, and then who knows, maybe you'll backstab me, or give me your sword. Let me have your sword. Malach HaMavet says, you want my sword? I can't give you my sword. He says, give me your sword, or else I don't trust you. Finally, Malach HaMavet gives him the sword. And the Malach HaMavet begins to hoist him up so that he can look over the wall. And the Gemara says, he jumped over the wall into Gan Eden with the Malach HaMavet sword. Now what? Now this is Gan Eden. This is Olam Haba. This is the place that's the antithesis of death. So death isn't allowed in. So the Malach HaMavet can't go in after him. And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi is on the other side of the wall, holding the sword. That's it. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, the Malach HaMavet screams, give me my sword back, come out of there. Yehoshua ben Levi says, he makes a promise. He promises that he's not leaving. He will not leave. Malach HaMavet now is up the creek. He's out of a job. Malach HaMavet goes to Borei Olam and says, Borei Olam, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi is making me trouble. He made me go and show him his place. He tricked me into giving him the sword. I don't have the sword. And now he promises that he's not leaving Olam Haba. I need my sword back. I got to get him out of there. Borei Olam says, he promised he's not leaving Olam Haba? Lech v'tivdok. Go out and check. Was there ever a time in his life that he made a promise and he broke the promise? Because if not, if he never broke a promise in his life, then not even I can tell him to leave. Wow. I think we should stop the class right here. End of class. Wow. Says the Gemara, Badku, they went and they checked. They opened up the big books. And they found that he never broke his word. When that's the case, it is what it is. Rabbi Shua ben Levi, he promised he's not leaving. He went into Gan Eden alive. Al-Hamavet says, but my sword? What about my sword? I'm out of business. So Borei Olam comes to Rabbi ben Levi and says to him, Yoshua, give him his sword back. Rabbi ben Levi wasn't so quick to give him the sword back. Borei Olam had to tell Rabbi ben Levi, it's for the best of the world. We once spoke about once upon a time, when we talked about the depth of the sin of Adam HaRishon, we found out that when God brought death to the world, it wasn't brought as a punishment. But when he brought death to the world, it was brought as a cleansing process. That's the reason why, lo aleinu lo aleichem, but when we bury somebody, if they're buried in a coffin, like in the United States, if they're buried in a coffin, then there has to be a collapsible bottom so that the body will be able to attach itself to the ground and decompose. Halachically, there isn't allowed to be something that's chotzetz, that comes like a chatzitza, a mechitza, between the body and the ground. The body has to be able to decompose back into the ground. Why? Because the evil, the sin, the averot that people did in their lifetime lingers in their flesh. And the way to purify those averot is when the neshama goes up. The neshama comes up to Shamayim, and the body decomposes back into the ground and absolves the sin. It dissolves it completely, leaving only a skeleton. And that's why by Tchiyat HaMetim, when the neshama is going to come back down again and go back into the body, it's going to get a new body, a new cleansing, a new clean body. If that's the case, then death, the process, is not a punishment. It's really a cleansing process. It's to clean the sin. That's exactly Borei Olam told to Adam HaRishon, that you're going to go back to the afar that you came from, because we need to dissolve the evil within you, in your flesh. But someone who doesn't do sin, his body is just as pure as his soul, he's allowed to go into Gan Eden, body and soul. And that was Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, similar to Eliyahu Hanavi, who went up body and soul. Unbelievable. How many stories you guys heard of great tzaddikim that for some reason hundreds of years later, there was one of the Pintos in Morocco, they say such a story, that he was buried in a place that they wanted to make a highway, a road. So they wanted to move his grave. And they opened up the grave and they looked inside, and the body looked like he passed away that morning. He died over 150, how many years ago it was. They said they were able to, the Arabs saw the color in his cheeks. They ran for their lives. They say a very similar story about Reb Chaim Vital in Syria, that they wanted to move his... Unbelievable. Because when there is no sin in the flesh, nothing makes the body decompose. That's the whole cycle of life. There's a body and there's a soul. Who's in control of who? If the neshama is in control of the body, then the body gets uplifted. The body gets upgraded to purity. And the body becomes an extension of the soul. So just like the neshama is so holy, the body becomes just as holy. And says the Ramchal, in Derech Hashem, that a person like that enters Gan Eden, body and soul. Unbelievable idea. That was Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. He entered Gan Eden, body and soul. Borei Olam had to convince Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, but still the world needs the cleansing of what we call death. until Mashiach comes. So you got to give the Malach HaMavet back his sword. So he says, all right, he gave him back the sword so that the world may go on with the system. Rabotai, Borei Olam said, look at this guy. If he never broke his promise, not even I can go up against his promise. If that's the case, I can't make him leave. We learn from here a tremendous yesod. We learn from here that if a person wants Borei Olam to give him exactly what it is that he's crying out for, when you ask Hashem for something, Hashem first asks the same thing back from you. And this is an idea that we were working on together over the weekend. If a person cries out for Rachmanut, Hashem says, are you Mirachem? If you have Rachmanut on people, if you're a person that shows mercy, then I'll show mercy to you. People love to be able to have kavod, especially from his wife, from his kids. And the question is, are you mechabed other people? If you're mechabed other people, you'll see people will be mechabed you, unbelievable. If you love other people, you'll see Hashem will make you ahuv, loved in the eyes of people. It always comes back to us. Everything we ask for, where are you in that picture? What type of person are you? The minute we can close the mouth of the Mekatragim in the area that we're asking for, you could be boteach b'Hashem 100% that He'll give you whatever it is that you need. And this was the secret. We said Parshat Tetzaveh, Moshe Rabbeinu's name, not mentioned anywhere in the entire parasha. And we stepped back for a minute. We remembered the famous Gemara in the 5th Perek of Masechet Berachot. The Gemara talks about that there were a few people in history, actually 3, that spoke to Hashem with a certain brazenness, with a certain, I don't want to use the word chutzpah, but with a certain strong tone that you wouldn't typically talk to Hashem. And who are those 3 people, the Gemara says? Well, the first one was Hannah, that she actually told Borei Olam, you have to give me a kid, you have to give me a child, although she was childless, akara, for so many years. She says, Hashem, if you don't give me a child, I'm going to force your hand. I'm going to go, I'm going to be mistater with another man, I'm not going to do anything, I'm going to get my husband to be jealous, and then my husband's going to do kinui v'stira, he's going to turn around and warn me not to be miyached with this guy again. I'm going to go again and do it again until they bring me to the Bet HaMikdash. They're going to bring the Kohen Gadol. They're going to bring the Mayim HaMe'ararim. They're going to make me drink from the waters. And I'm going to be innocent. And you know what the Torah says? Guarantee that anyone who didn't have children, akara, now you got to give me a child. Now you have no choice. Now that's a little brazen to talk that way to Borei Olam. But the Gemara says 3 people that spoke to Hashem with a certain brazenness, a certain chutzpah to it, not respectful to the way one would speak to, and Hashem answered them. Chana was the first. Eliyahu Navi was the second, says the Gemara. Because when it came time, the people were sinning. Eliyahu Navi said to Hashem, it's not their fault. You know why they're sinning? Because Hashem, you put in them a Yetzer Hara, and he's too overbearing. It's not the people's fault, it's your fault. I don't know how we can even say that. You know, I feel uncomfortable even saying that on a table. I'm just saying, but that's what he said. To take a look at the Gemara, the 5th Perek. You'll see it in Berachot. It comes right after the story of Chana and Shemuel HaNavi. And Hashem was maskim to him. Hashem said, you're right. You're right. The Yetzer Hara that I put in them was way too strong. You're right. The sins of the people it's not completely their fault. And then finally, who was the third? Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu told Borei Olam, Why are you angry at them? Because of the golden calf, the egel. Where'd they get the gold from? You gave them the gold. You gave them the gold. That's the words in Torah, in Devarim. V'di zahav. Says the Gemara, Moshe Rabbeinu said to God, Natata lahem yoter midai zahav. V'di zahav. Yoter midai zahav. You gave them too much gold. And it got to their heads. And a lot of times when people come into too much money, they forget God. They forget God. They rely on the money. They rely on the gold. And suddenly there's prikat ol. Now everything's hefker. The guy goes off and does what he wants. The minute a lot of money comes, the guy doesn't feel any restriction to any force. They go off and do what they want. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, you're upset about the golden calf? You know where the gold came from? You supplied him with the gold. And you gave him too much. Too much money. Look what happens to the person when he has too much money. He ended up using the money against you. That's a very rough statement to say to God. He's basically telling Hashem that he's an aid and a abettor to the crime. And Borei Olam came back and he was maskim to Moshe Rabbeinu that he has a good ta'ana, but he wasn't forgiving yet. When did Hashem forgive? And finally Moshe Rabbeinu says, Abba, if you're not going to forgive them, then erase my name from the Torah. Mechenina b'sifrecha. Erase my name from your Torah. This week's parasha. You won't find Moshe's name written once in the parasha of Tetzaveh. Where although Hashem didn't erase his name from the entire Torah, but he erased his name from one parasha. This week's parasha. Why? Because Borei Olam, when he heard that, he forgave. Is that amazing? I want to ask you a question, guys. When Moshe Rabbeinu said, what are the Egyptians going to say? When Moshe Rabbeinu said, what's the world going to say that you brought your people out to the desert and killed them? Okay, we'll deal with that. What's Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov going to say? All right, we'll deal with that too. All these things wasn't the clincher. Moshe Rabbeinu turns around and says, erase my name from the Torah. Oh, now I can forgive him. Really? Why? And the answer is, because Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, I am ready to give up on my personal honor. Erase me from the Torah. My whole legacy, my whole life, everything I've done, everything I did for the Jewish people, everything I did for Klal Yisrael in Mitzrayim and Paro, and running and back and forth and leading them through the Midbar, erase it all. I'm ready to give up on my honor and my legacy. I'm ready to let it all go for the sake of the people. Hashem says, if you're ready to let your honor go for the sake of the people, then you just activated me and gave me the ability to let my honor go as well. Now I can forgive. And that's why I have a new pshat now. When we were kids, we were told, really, Hashem didn't want to erase Moshe Rabbeinu's name from the Torah at all. But because he's such a tzaddik and he said the words, erase my name from the Torah, so he had to make it happen at least in one parasha. That's what we were told as kids, which there is truth to that. The Midrash talks about that. But I want to tell you a deeper pshat. Hashem didn't erase his name from Parashat Tetzaveh because he needed to make it happen at least in one place in the Torah, because he was such a big tzaddik, because he said so. Hashem made him erase his name in a parasha in order to demonstrate that Moshe was someone who let his honor go for the people in real time. Not that he would have done it, that he actually did it. His name was erased for the honor of the people. Says Hashem, you did that? I have no choice now but to do the same because of what you did. And from here we learn a secret and bitachon. That if I could fess up, niki kapayim, if I can come to God and ask Him for something that I have clean hands in that area, I could rely on God to guarantee, give it to me when I ask for it. So if I'm asking him to give me, and I'm a giver, then yeah, I can rely on him 100% that he will give me. And if I'm asking him for rachmanut in a situation, I'm in a tough spot, and I'm saying, Abba, be merachem, be merachem. Hashem says, what about you? Are you merachem? If I could show that I'm a Rahman, then yeah, you can guarantee that he'll be merachem as well. Just like Moshe. He gave up everything, his honor, his legacy, everything. Hashem says, I have no choice now. I must act to you the same way in return. I must give up my honor and forgive now. This is a tremendous concept. So if you want God to be merachem on you, go out and be merachem on somebody. And then be boteach. Abba! I was just Rahman. Now I'm relying on you to be merachem as well. And rely on him. Because he wants to give you more than you want to get. But there are things in Shamayim called Mekatarigim. These angels that talk against us. And Hashem wants to give us good. But they say, but Hashem, wait 1 second. You want to give this guy that? He himself is not so great in the area. Could you imagine? Like we said Friday night. The guy that wants kavod. Or the guy that wants to be loved by his wife, his kids. But this guy's not mechabed other people. The guy comes to work. This guy, he's an idiot. That guy, he couldn't fill a simple order. This partner, Lee, how did I end up with this guy? He's a liability to business. This secretary, she can't even make a coffee. What did I hire? The guy has no kavod for anybody else. But when he comes home, where's my slippers? How come I don't have slippers? What's going on? This is the way you respect a husband? Who taught you? And then it always goes back to, your mother. It always goes back. Always. And then the kids. This is the way the kids. They respect their father. Did you respect your father when you were a kid? Hashem wants to know. You want your kids to respect you? Did you respect your father when you were a kid? Borei Olam wants to know. And therefore, any area in life that you're coming to ask Hashem, please give me, Hashem says, before you ask me, check yourself. You're coming to me in the kikapayim with clean hands in that area? Then put your bitachon in Hashem and vadai, rely on him, and he will give it to you, chik-chak. He will give it to you. This is an amazing idea. This is something to think about. This is a great trick. How to activate bitachon with a guarantee return. And that's why, if you really want something big, go out and do it, and then ask for it. You want rachmanut? Go find an almana and yitomim and help them. And then turn back to Borei Olam and said, Borei Olam, I was merachem. Now you be merachem. Oh, now you're talking a new language. Now you're talking a new language. I told you guys. Now, when I was in the accident that time, 2009, the night before Rosh Hashanah, and sure enough, I was stuck in Robert Wood Johnson's hospital in Sayreville, New Jersey. And it was Rosh Hashanah. I couldn't believe it, that I was stuck in a hospital, Rosh Hashanah. Thank God I was alive. But I was on Rosh Hashanah in a hospital bed. And my mother told me that, my brain was really gassed because of the fall. It's a 104-foot fall at 80 miles an hour. Miraculous, I came out with a sprained thumb. Borei Olam. Kol atzmotai tomarna Hashem, mi chamocha. Every bone in my body screamed, God, who is like you? You saved every ounce of me. My mother told me that the first day I was saying Musaf, and she says, you must have said Musaf about 9 times. Because every time you said Musaf, you forgot that you said it, and you went and said it again. And then you went and said it again. And then you went and said it again. Because my head was, the second day my head was much better, and I was able to sit up. And I told you guys, the second day was already Sunday. Tkiyat shofar. I could not believe that I'm not going to have a shofar. And I'm telling you as I'm sitting here now, I was on the 27th floor of Robert Wood Johnson's hospital in Sayreville, New Jersey. There isn't a Jew to be found for miles. You know what Mr. Logic would have said? Chalas. That ain't happening this year. Habibi, you're going through Yom Adin? Mafi, no shofar. It's impossible. How could it be? Makes no sense. There isn't a Jew for miles. Again, you're trying to be mistader, borei olam, with your logic. You're trying to fit something so big into a box that's so small? Are you joking? Guys, I'm sitting here, I'm looking you in the eye, I'm telling you. I looked at my wife, I looked at my mother, and I said, you'll see. I'm going to have a shofar. I'm guaranteeing you. Guaranteeing you. I'm somech on borei olam. 100% in Sayreville, New Jersey, in a hospital, on the 27th floor, and you'll see I'm going to have a shofar. And you know why I was so certain? Not because I'm anything special. Because since I was 4 years old, I would walk with my father, 6 o'clock in the morning, to Rabbi Haliwa, who at that time is on the block that I'm living on now. Wow, Hashem has a sense of humor. E7th between U and V. Every time I walked to that block, I used to say, God-forsaken block. Now I live on that block. So never make fun of anything. I'm telling you, emet. Every time I walk by the house of Rabbi Haliwa, I say, I can't believe it. I used to walk here when I was 5 years old with my father. I can't believe it. And I hated the block. It was like it was a creepy block. And now I live on that block. You got to be careful. Be very careful. Borei Olam doesn't forget a thing. A thing. We used to come in at 6 o'clock. My father would blow shofar. And then after he'd blow the 100 kolot, we'd make kiddush. And then we go to the Mir Yeshiva. My father would blow another 150 kolot. And then after the Mir Yeshiva, who ended at 3 in the afternoon, we'd walk home to Avenue L. And I was my father's caddy. I held the clubs. I held the shofar and he blew it. He used to tell me, all right, give me the 9 iron, Give it, I'm joking. But I would hold the shofarot. And on the way home at 3 in the afternoon, you're starving. 3 in the afternoon, you didn't even have you ever see the looks on the guys in this shul at 5 to 1? They're like, Hajjabah already, get me out of here. I'm talking about 3 p.m. 3 p.m. We leave the Mir Yeshiva. We don't get home until about 4:30, 5 o'clock. It doesn't take that long to walk to Avenue L. But my father would make local stops. He'd walk down the block. They would start pulling him in. There's a sick person in this house. Please, come in. Rabbi Yitzchak, please. Later on years, the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Shmuel Birnbaum, was not well enough to come to the yeshiva. He would go there to blow. When Rabbi Shmuel Birnbaum's son, Rabbi Label Birnbaum, was not well before he passed away, he went there. He would stop by all the houses going straight down East 7th and then to East 9th. You wouldn't believe how many people were waiting for him out on their stoop. Rabbi Bensoussan, there's someone sick here. Please, if you just come in and blow. And my father wasn't the guy that blows 10 kolot. When he hears somebody is sick and they want to be Mikayem the mitzvah of shofar, he didn't come in and just blow 10. He would blow at least 60. 60. I don't even blow 60 for the ladies in the afternoon that come here for shul to be mir. He blew 60 for every single sick person. And he wouldn't stop. House after house. And I used to look at him. As a kid, I remember, I used to go, where's the air coming from? It comes to a point you get tired, He's on his, 800th kolot. And then you got to go back the next day and do it all over again. I turned to my wife, I turned to my mother, and I said, I guarantee you that I'm asking now Hashem for a shofar, and He's going to send me a shofar. You know why? Because since I was 4 years old, I walked with my father to every single one of those houses for years, blowing for all the sick people that needed to hear a shofar. Now I'm the sick guy who needs to hear the shofar. Guarantee you He's not going to hold back. He's going to give it to me. Because in this area, I'm clean. Guaranteed. The kikapayim. No shaila. I closed my eyes. I said, Abba, nachon ata ohev oti. You love me, Abba. I'm your son. I'm your son. I need a shofar. I'm relying on you to send me a shofar. I'm telling you, I didn't finish my words. The door of the room opens. This big, burly Lubavitcher guy comes bouncing into the room with their amazing charisma. No jacket, no tie, just a hat. He comes walking in holding the shofar of Mashiach. It was this long show, like the ones that you take pictures with by the kotel. With the little tebari guy, you know what I'm talking about? The long ones, the ones that you need 3 people to hold. Go ahead, you hold this end, I'll go to the other side of the room. You know, those. He walks in and he says, is there somebody here who needs a shofar? I said, thank you, that's mine. I ordered that, that's my order. Uber Eats, right over here, thanks. He comes walk. I'm telling you, my mother and my wife looked at each other. They know what to do with themselves. And I told them there's no magic trick. I was boteach 100% that Hashem was going to send me this. Because I know for 100% in this area, I could ask. And Rabotai, I don't want you to think that you can't ask in the areas that you're not 100%. But when you do ask in those areas, tell him, Abba, I'm going to get better in this area. And now I'm asking for an advance. I'm relying on you to give it to me now, even though I'm not worthy. Just because you love me. But if you want to make it quicker, make sure you get that area well. And then ask. The guy comes walking in, hands me the shofar. I'm telling you, I blew the house down. Unbelievable. So we're holding at the 44th minute on a 20-minute class. You gotta love it. And Vico's wife already called him and pinned him about 7 times in the last 20 minutes, saying, didn't I tell you Rabbi Duvi can't do a 25-minute class? Who are you fooling? So I'm just going to end off and I want to tell you this. Then I'll let you go. But I want you guys to hear this major concept of Bitachon. Major concept that if you want something from Hashem, be boteach and show him that in that area you're good. And show him that in that area you're going to get better. And don't get me wrong, I need to say this again. I'm sorry I'm repeating this. I don't want you to feel that when you're boteach b'Hashem, it's only in an area that you can claim for. No. Bitachon works from a father to a son even when you're not deserving in that area. Just for the fact that you said, I'm relying on you, and nobody else, that itself Hashem will give it to you. But if you want to learn a good trick of how to really, really get yourself to a matziv that you're going to ask, get big in that area and then ask for it. You have a shalom bayit issue, go and help somebody else's shalom bayit and then ask for your own. You want some money? Go out and give some money. And boy, will you get. This is a tremendous concept. We literally can ask Hashem, I'm boteach in you. You're going to give it to me now because I am showing you that I'm holding with it. Me and my wife, we were married for 3.5 years. And we went to many doctors. And I'm not going to tell you the entire story because many of you already know. But the point I need you to hear. We went to many, many doctors, supposedly the best. And all of them told us, didn't look that good, to put it mildly. And then finally there was one doctor. This guy was like the last stop. He didn't take any insurance. He was a German doctor. The consultation was $1,500. That was just a shalom aleichem. $1,500. before any procedures. And that's why, by the way, today, you know that they have the Shasathon for 8 time. If you want to know the great things that they do, today, the great things that they do is basically, lo aleinu lo alechem, the people that come to these nisyonot, the procedures of this area of infertility is incredibly expensive. You have no idea. I remember there was a time I was taking shots. Each shot was, I think, $300. Uno. And I had to take it for weeks. How do you do that? No insurance, no coverage, nothing. Because many of these things are speculative still. So we came to this doctor, German doctor, on the Upper West Side. And I remember sitting down in front of him, and I saw the German. I saw the German in him. I'm not going to go through the whole story because we're already at the end of the class, but basically, after the bizyonot that I was put through, we should never know from this. It should be a kapara for me and my children, and for everybody in Klal Yisrael. I'm telling you, the bizyonot they put you through. After he put me through such bizyonot, and then he put my wife through such bizyonot on all the checkings that he did, procedures that he did, he comes back with the big psak. He sits us back in his office, in the leather chairs, and he turns to us and he says to us, David, it's impossible. I mean, I hear his voice still in my head. It's 20 some odd years later. I hear his voice. Impossible. It's exactly what he told me. It's just not possible. And this is the guy that supposedly everybody else who couldn't have kids by all other doctors came to this guy and was matzliach. And he's the guy, the last stop. He's the guy that's telling us, not shaykh. I said, doctor, I appreciate your opinion. But there's still a God. And I'm relying on him. And he says, David. He tells me, German atheist, David. He was basically trying to tell me, like, don't keep your hopes up because it ain't happening. That's really what he was telling me. My wife and I, we get up, we leave the office, we walk out the front door, I'll never forget, and there, right there, on the Upper West Side in the 70s, we step out onto the stoop, and she looks at me, and she bursts out crying, something horrible. And she says to me, that's it. It's over. It's done. Accept it. Duvi, accept it. Just accept it. And I said to her, who's in charge? You think the doctor's in charge? He gives an opinion. He's at best a shaliach. Who's in charge, Naomi? Who's in charge? Don't forget Abba. Even in the areas that we're not worthy. When we cry out, Abba, I'm relying on no one else but you. Just for the fact that you relied on me, says Borei Olam, I'm going to show you miracles. You stepped out of your little box of logic and you were crazy enough to step forward. And you were able to literally believe in Borei Olam, no one else. Abba, I love you. Abba, nachon ata ohev oti. Abba, nachon, you're the greatest Bal Rahman, Bal Chesed. Abba, ani tzarich otcha. Abba, I need you. I need you now. Ani talui becha, Abba. I am totally reliant on you. Ani somech rak alecha. I'm somech only on you. Help me. Help my problem. Help my issues. You take care of my problems. I'm relying on you to take care of my problems. I need you to send Shalom Bayit. I need you to send me a kid. I need you to send me a parnasah. No one else but you can help me. No one. And I will not allow anyone to put me in that box. Let him call me crazy. But I got you, Abba. And I'm your son. And you love me. And you're the greatest Bal Rahman. Please be merachem. I'm relying on your Rahman. V'ani behastecha batachti. I'm boteach in your kindness. And therefore, Yagel libi b'shuatecha. And therefore, you'll see my heart will be elated with the great Yeshua that I know, Vadai, you're going to send. One day, Ashir al Hashem ki gamal alai. One day, I'm going to already sing. I'm already talking about the song that I'm going to sing on the Yeshua that you're going to send me in the moment of darkness. Wow, that's a Bal Bitachon. That was David HaMelech. We get back into the car and we go back into Brooklyn. And we come to Coney Island Avenue. And we stopped for a minute because I had to run into Makor to buy a sefer. And then after that, I was going to take her out to eat to a restaurant for lunch, just to relax her, just to kind of smooth over the news that we were just told in German. Impossible. I still hear it till today in my head. So I turned to my wife because everybody understands Coney Island Avenue, midday between P and Quentin. Good luck. You have the shot of an ice cube in Gehenna finding a parking spot over there. So I pulled over to a hydrant, and I said to my wife, listen, we're parked by a pump. I'm begging you, just don't get out of the car until I get back, because the last thing we need on a day like today is a ticket. And I went into Makor, and I found a sefer, I found another yarmulke I wanted to buy. I come out, she's gone. And then I peek over on the window shield. And there it was in all its glory of orange. I pull it off the window shield and I look and I see it was a whopper. The guy hit me like for the pump, and there was like a sign down the block. So it was like $110 ticket. It was a crazy ticket. I said, that's it. When she comes back, she's going to get it. She's going to get it. My face was as orange as that envelope. Listen to me. I was boiling. After the day I had, that was the cherry on top. In all vivid red. I got into the car, and I was waiting for her to come back. And then 10 minutes later, I see her coming down the block, and she's blowing on her nails. She's doing the windshield wiper move. And I said, she went for a manicure. She was probably so worked up that she needed any release. She needed any ounce of comfort. Any ounce. She comes back into the car. And she has this big smile on her face. And she says, wow, look at that. We didn't get a ticket. And I said, wow, look at that. We didn't get a ticket, honey. Hashem loves you. And I smothered the ticket on the inside of my jacket. Until today, she has no clue that we ever got that ticket. And 30 days later, my wife took the first pregnancy test, and it was positive, and she was pregnant for the first time in almost 4 years. And I said to myself, you were mevater, you let it go. You pulled back on your anger. You overcame that moment. Hashem says, you were mevater, you let that go. Now I'm going to be mevater, and I'm going to let it go. And now I'm going to give you what you're asking for. And now I'm going to give you what you need. Abba, I love you. And you love me. Please, forgive me for whatever I've done. Help me out. I'm relying on only you to take care of all my issues and all my problems. Because when we called up that German doctor and we told him that my wife was pregnant, you know what that German said? He said over the phone, David, impossible. It's exactly, I'm telling you, emet. And then the chutzpah, this guy. He tells me, did you read the pregnancy test box? It says only 93 or 94% accurate. You're the 7% of the mistake. See, even in the moment of Yeshua, they're still testing you to see if you're holding on. You're holding. Do you believe? Do you believe Borei Olam can do anything? Because they're still going to get at you. They're still going to pick at you. I said, what? He said, yes, send it to a blood test. I said, I am going to send it to a blood test. And you're going to see, not because I need the blood test. Abba already delivered. I relied on him, and he delivered. Against all odds, against all doctors. But I'm going to do it just to show you, you German. I'm going to show you. And I sent it to the blood test. And they sent over the results. And he calls me back after seeing that the blood test says that she's pregnant. And he says to me, David, it's impossible. He says he has no explanation. And that's the beauty of someone who doesn't live with logic and lives with bitachon. I don't need an explanation. I'm not putting Abba in a small box of logic. Abba, ata ohev oti. Abba, ani talui b'cha. Ani tzarich otcha. I need you, Abba. I'm relying on only you to take care of all my problems. And like David HaMelech says, V'ani b'chastecha batachti. Oh, at that minute that you're boteach, Yageli bi b'shuatecha. I could already feel the Yeshua upon me. And therefore I can start already singing from now. Ashir al Hashem ki gamal alai.